Muay Thai, a fighting style known as the art of eight limbs, utilizing the elbows, knees, shins, and fists. The origin of such a martial arts practice can be traced as far back as the 16th century during the reign of the Kingdom Siam in Thailand, seen as a peacetime activity for the military. As its popularity grew, Muay Thai became a part of nationwide festivals for entertainment, and was no less a practical martial art. As the centuries rolled by, Muay Thai would still stand the test of time even today, being utilized in memorable martial arts movies such as Jean-Claude Van Damme's Kickboxer, and soon enough would translate into video games through iconic video game characters such as Joe Higashi, Hua King, Adon, Bruce Irvin, Brad Burns, this ugly mofo, and perhaps the most famous of them all, Zack. Intrigued by the impact of this martial art, Tecmo had already thought of their first character idea in the initial stages of developing Dead or Alive. Initially coined as a traditional Muay Thai fighter, this character would gradually evolve into a style all his own, and unlike any other before him. Today, our spotlight character is Zack. I know a boy, his name is Zack. No, the other Zack.
Soldier second class Zack, on the job!
No, the other Zack.
Hey Zack, yo, last night at the movie.
Oh, hell no. As awesome as being a former Power Ranger trained in hip-hop keto would sound, not him either. The Zack we're focusing on is a funky Muay Thai fighter, boasting a loud, eccentric flair inspired by then-popular Chicago Bulls player Dennis Rodman, an almost dance-like style mixed in Muay Thai, and sporting either dark sunglasses or goggles. You would never think that a funky Muay Thai fighter rocking an alien suit would actually work in a fighting game, but lo and behold, leave it to Team Ninja to pull off the ridiculous and make it stick. Though he lacks much of a detailed story like the last two characters we covered, he's still quite an interesting character in his own right, if only because we know so little about him. Like the previous two episodes, well, you know the drill by now. Dimension storyline first, original storyline later. Without further ado, this is the third episode of Dead or Alive Lore Explained, featuring the Muay Thai fighter, Zack. Of the original 8 fighters in Dead or Alive, Zack is the life of the party and competes in a tournament only for his indulgence. A truly free-spirited youth brimming with confidence and swagger through and through. However, when the design team at Tecmo originally created this character, he was radically different and had a more traditional Muay Thai design wearing a red headband. He also had a completely different name, Kelly. Unlike most other initial designs for the original 8 of Dead or Alive, the character Kelly survived long enough to make the prototype stages until he vanished without explanation when released in arcades in Japan. According to an official statement from creator Tomonori Itagaki via Facebook, Kelly was the first character we developed. It was a first-time experience for us, so the completion rate of Kelly's was low. So I decided to reject Kelly. Anyway, certainly the near-complete characters' names have changed. I'll write those here. You will easily find that there are only 7 characters. We strongly believe that fighting games have to provide at least 8 characters, but the rest time we had was too short. So Ihara and I decided, let's develop Kelly again from scratch. That was the reason why Zack was born, and the rest was history. Zack is a young, energetic African-American male in his mid-20s with a lean, muscular build. Never one to stick to a consistent style of fashion, he is always changing it up in some unique, wild ways. Whether it's dyeing his hair green or red, or wearing some really out there costumes. Arguably his most iconic costume, at least according to fans and consistency by process of elimination, is his silver reflective alien bodysuit, with gloves and boots with neon green trim to match, a blue screen chest piece, and a cherry on top, a hood with pointy ears and an antenna that glows when activated by a taunt. During the 2-year time skip, Zack trades his unorthodox Dennis Rodman-esque looks for a more subtle bald head, along with some significantly more conservative costumes, which suggests that he has matured a bit. However, he never ever gave up that alien suit. Zack's personality is an unusually cheerful one, and is hard-pressed to ever be in a particularly sad state. He much prefers to put on a show when he fights, and tends to never shut up when he does. He has on many occasions shown to be very flirty, particularly with the female wrestling superstar Tina Armstrong, who has turned him down repeatedly. Zack also claims that his style of Muay Thai is self-taught, but whether or not this is true is anyone's guess. He also seems to have an unusual skill set when it comes to climbing buildings and gliding his way through high voltage beams, similar to a scene from 2004's Ninja Gaiden. And the icing on the cake? He is apparently a low-key fan of 70s anime, as he paraphrases a famous line from Captain Harlock in the 1979 theatrical film Galaxy Express 39.
男には死ぬと分かっていてもやらねばならん時がある。
男なら危険を顧みず死ぬと分かっていても行動しなければならない時がある。
Zack's sole motivation for joining the DOA tournament is to win the prize money and live a life of luxury. Because of all this, he is often coined as the comic relief of the series. However, despite his self-indulgent ways, he generally cares for the well-being of others, which he demonstrates on more than 2 occasions. When it comes to the spotlight, the casino tables, or even a 2-week vacation on a private island, there's never a dull moment with Zack, and it's this level of charm that has helped him endure as a relevant character in the Dare Life series since day one. Aboard the Freedom Survivor, Zack was one among many contestants competing for prize money in the first Dare Life tournament, only to have Genfu retort that he has purpose in winning it in order to cure his granddaughter's illness. Despite this, Zack didn't back down, and assures Genfu with confidence that if he wins, he'll double the winnings at the casino.
My cup runneth over with power. I will use my prize money to pay for Mei Ling's operation.
Sorry, I'm taking the winnings to Vegas.
Fool! My granddaughter's life is all that matters.
Chillax, Gramps. I can double the dough at the table.
Never!
He considered Jan Lee to be a self-proclaimed rival, and took a particular interest in Tina. He was also among the few people who sparred with Kasumi prior to the tournament. However, he didn't make it far in the actual tournament, and it's often speculated that he was eliminated by either Jan Lee or Tina. In the second Dare Life tournament, Elno arranged a meeting gala aboard the Freedom Survivor to ensure good PR and maintaining Dortech's integrity after the assassination of his father, famed Douglas. During the tournament, Zack would attempt to flirt with Tina, and she rejects his advances, tossing a mirror to him, hitting that his looks are far too flamboyant for her tastes. In a similar scenario, the mercenary Leon, whom we discussed earlier, approaches Zack, saying that there's a familiar air about him. Zack says that he never met him before in his life, and tosses the very same mirror Tina gave to him, telling Leon he looks ugly. Based on the uncanny events during the tournament, it's safe to say that even though Ryu Hayabusa technically won, he forfeited the winnings by not having a presence during the ceremonies, and therefore, Zack received the prize money. It would also explain why Genfu went on to take an apprentice during the events of the third Dare Life tournament, now having no distractions in passing on his great knowledge. In the third Dare Life tournament, Zack would once again compete, making it surprisingly far enough to compete with the ninjas. However, he would lose to Ayane, and because the ninjas once again ghosted during the ceremonies, Zack would claim the prize money again. In the aftermath, Zack would travel to Las Vegas and try his luck at doubling his winnings at the casino tables. It was there that he would meet a woman named Nikki, who sends a wink his way for love, and to say his luck changed would be an understatement. This would lead to the events of Dare Life Xtreme Beach Volleyball, where he would purchase a remote island and name it Zack Island. He would then send invitations of the fourth Dare Life tournament to all the female competitors in particular, including Lisa Hamilton, who was also Tina's childhood friend, and even more surprisingly, the assassin Christie. In reality, it was all a ploy to lure them into a 2-week vacation. When the 2 weeks expired and all the patrons left, the volcano conveniently erupted, destroying all which was built in the short-lived paradise that was Zack Island. As a result, Nikki broke up with Zack, and this was a wake-up call that he needed to compete for the Dare Life tournament once more. During the events of the fourth Dare Life tournament, Zack would take on some self-imposed challenge to climb the 999-meter tri-tower to hone his skills, for no other reason other than the fact the tower exists. but the climb isn't without some obstacles along the way, such as birds out of blood.
999メートル。人はなぜトライタワーに登るのか。ぜひもね、そこにタワーがあるからさ。
Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help.
As he reached his way to the top, Zack would pull a page straight out of 2004's Ninja Gaiden as he rides the electric beams to the aircraft landing post fastened to the tri-tower, though the landing isn't perfect. When he comes to, a loud booming noise is heard as one of the buildings in the tri-tower exploded, much to Zack's horror. And if that wasn't enough, the mercenary Bayman was close by, and he was not in a happy mood. Though it is never explained what happened when the two engaged in battle, what we do know is that Zack managed to get extracted from the tri-tower via helicopter before it was completely destroyed. And just as Eleanor was all but prepared to meet her maker in an act of penance for failing to stop Donovan from unleashing Alpha 152, Zack saves her life in a shocking twist, thus ending the events of Dead or Alive 4 and the story of Dead or Alive Dimensions. 2 years after the events of Dead or Alive 4, Zack is in Helena's employ as Doatech's head organizer for the upcoming Dead or Alive 5 tournament, and was held responsible for handing out the necessary invitations to the usual suspects: Tina, Bass, Elliot, Brad Wong, Leifang, Hitomi, Kokoro, and Jan Lee. While certain people initially met with playful resistance, they were all willing to join in the end. Additionally, he would try to gather the ninjas and Bayman to meet with Elena personally, with Hayabusa and Bayman refusing the offer for personal reasons. Understandably, given their circumstances, none of the ninjas were interested in joining the tournament at all. In the grand finals of the Dead or Alive 5 tournament, Jan Lee would become the victor, but before Zack could award the champion, Jan Lee had already vanished, still dwelling on an incident that humbled him earlier, thus concluding the events of Dead or Alive 5 from Zack's perspective. In the events of Dead or Alive 6, Zack's role is mostly similar to the previous game, where he gathers the usual suspects for the upcoming tournament. In New York, Zack gets information about a prize-fighting local legend named Diego, who happens to be joining them in an attempt to raise money for his mother's undisclosed terminal illness. Despite giving Diego a tremendous opportunity by offering him a chance to join the Dead or Alive 6 tournament, Zack was ultimately rejected by Diego, who felt obligated to stay as close to his mother as possible. After Miller and Rigg took a shot at convincing Diego to join, Diego finally made up his mind, striking a deal with Zack to go to the tournament. Later, after Kokoro met the mysterious Nico in a designated spot of the DOA Coliseum, and later Helena, who revealed Kokoro's true ties to Doatech, Zack arrived with an invitation for her into the tournament. Noticing she wasn't in high spirits, Zack attempts to cheer her up in a way only Zack would do.
And...
All right then!
Huh?
Let me give you a bit of training.
You know, I do feel better.
And this is why DOA 6 is going to be a sitcom. With all the invitations set out, Zack would find his employer Helena staring out at the stars the night before the tournament, only to have her ask for a friendly spar with him. With the two exhausted, the two once again gaze at the stars with high hopes the tournament will turn out great. During the halftime show of the Dead or Alive 6 tournament, Neo Tengu makes a surprising unscripted entrance, demanding to face an opponent. Not wanting the audience to panic at her strange, otherworldly appearance, and quite confused at why she's there himself, Zack plays along and decides to challenge Neo Tengu. Unfortunately, Zack loses the fight, but plays the whole thing off as part of the act in the halftime show, thus concluding the events of Dead or Alive 6 from Zack's perspective.
Halftime show!
Now you're probably wondering, Why did I save this part for last rather than mention this at the beginning like I did the last two characters? Well, there's a good reason for that. Remember when I mentioned how mysterious Zack is? Well, this is where the mystery behind the character mostly focuses on, in his past. Sure, we know he made a presence in the first Dare Life tournament at the age of 25, but so little of his backstory before then is ever explained. What we can piece together, though, are key cutscenes specifically from Dead or Alive 2, Dead or Alive 4, and Dead or Alive 5. In Dead or Alive 2, Zack encountered an old Italian mercenary named Leon, who claims to have a strong familiarity with him. However, Zack claims that he never met the man. In Dead or Alive 4, we go to Kokoro's rather lengthy character ending, where Zack notices Kokoro at a distance and calls out her name, but she doesn't notice. Now keep in mind, Dead or Alive 4 took place after the events of Dead or Alive Xtreme Beach Volleyball, where Kokoro is not even present. So that would mean that Zack may have known Kokoro even before then. Finally, in Dead or Alive 5, Kokoro spars with Akira in a clash of body-to-body fighting styles, in which Zack quotes,
10 years, huh? Time sure does fly.
While it would be easy to dismiss it as Zack breaking the fourth wall and poking fun at Akira Yuki's famous quote,
10年早いんだよ!
it can also be interpreted as the first time Zack has actually met Kokoro in 10 years, which makes sense out of Zack's familiarity with Kokoro and her DOA 4 character ending. And I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar that it's because of Zack's past with Kokoro that Elena has even considered Zack in her employ for as long as she has. And not just because he saved her life. But what is the extent of Zack and Kokoro's relationship? How did they meet? And why does Leon seem familiar with him, but he doesn't? If we take what we just pieced together in these cutscenes and interpret Zack's 10 years quote as the last time he met Kokoro, we can safely assume that Zack was 17 years old when he met Kokoro, who was 9 years old at the time. Typically, the age of 17 is the common projected age of a high school graduate in the US, and it isn't far-fetched to say that Zack may have either been studying abroad or joined the military and got drafted to Japan. Speaking of the military, let's go back to Zack's brief interaction with the mercenary Leon in Dead or Alive 2. By this time, Leon was at least 34 years old, and as his backstory suggests, he was traveled most of the world. He also has a history with Bayman, who would be 23. Given that Bayman has implied that Leon has aged since they met in Dead or Alive 3, this would also suggest they haven't met each other in at least 8 years. Taking all this into consideration, I have one plausible theory regarding the connection between Zack, Kokoro, Leon, and Bayman at this point in time. Assuming Doatech Japan still existed, and mind you, Doatech had its own military organization, Zack, Bayman, and Leon may have all been involved in some way with Doatech 10 years ago. The extent of their involvement is anyone's guess, and I hope it's something that the writers of Team Ninja will one day address soon to not only give Zack the much needed backstory expansion he deserves, but also a chance to learn more about Bayman's history with Leon, as well as Zack's history with Leon. And who knows, they may even find a way to retcon the prototype character Kelly into Zack's backstory somehow, or make him a new character in the series entirely. We already have 2 distinct Command Sambo fighters, 3 distinct wrestlers, 2 different Mimic characters in Hanukkah and Raido. Hell, we even have 3 different Kasumis in Dead or Alive Dimensions, and eventually in future updates of Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate with the addition of Phase 4 alongside Kasumi and Alpha 152. And if we really want to get technical, the distinctions don't even stop there. Team Ninja expanded on guest character Spartan 458's fighting style in Dead or Alive 4 and made it Rachel's own in Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate, which was well received. And for those who couldn't get enough of Tengu's playstyle in his glory days of DOA 2 Ultimate, Neo Tengu was created in later updates of Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate with the move list expanded upon, and she too was well received. So what the hell is stopping Team Ninja from having a more traditional Muay Thai fighter in the mix as a stark contrast to Zack's flashier style? He is notable for being the first character created, so this would be a nice little nod to history, similarly to how Siba, a rejected prototype character from the original Virtua Fighter, would be a full-fledged playable character in Fighter's Mega Mix for Sega Saturn. And hopefully, unlike Virtua Fighter Siba, he won't just be a bonus playable character, but have an actual fleshed out story that will help to expand on Zack's character development, as well as his own, whatever Team Ninja decides to do. As long as there's a DOA tournament, huge prize money, and casinos to double the winnings at by buying private islands where girls can run around in bikinis pool hopping, chasing flags, riding on jet skis, and playing volleyball, Zack will always be the man with the plan.
Always be ambitious!
And that concludes Zack's episode of Dare Leifang Explained. Tune in later this month as we'll cover the story of Leifang, a rich and talented college student whose chance encounter with a man who saved her from street thugs grew into an obsession, and later, an unexpected friendship with the power of cabbage. Warning, the next episode may contain corny jokes about friend zones, fan shipping, and a vegetable which may or may not actually bring people together like sunshine and rainbows. Your discretion is advised. I'm Osmic, and I hope you look forward to this episode about the young genius of Tai Chi Chuan. Happy listening.